Okay, well, I'm going to jump forward now to our hybrid logistics briefing for everyone, so you understand kind of what's going on in the market. Really, when you ask yourself, why is the Learning Council keep talking about hybrid logistics? Because logistics is the hidden killer. It's what's happening to school districts across the country. Logistics digitally is very different. So let's talk about what the research says. So the number one biggest school administrative pressure, and this is also invisible for many people, is space and time use. Students are demanding remote flexibility for almost every single district we talk to. There's a few in Texas and in Florida that are back full-time live, and they are operating like the old normal mostly. But almost everywhere else, this increasing need for time and space flexibility is here. Which is resulting in a master schedule complexity that districts have never had to deal with before. And that's things like maybe thinking they're not going to just be the two rails, like here's my online option, and then here's my, you got to be in the building option, because a lot of parents do still want the hands-on science labs, the art labs, the music, and they want to be on the football team, but everything else they want to do virtually, and they want to do it on their own time. They want to do it fully personalized. This is a really weird sort of world to try to operate in with your master schedule. Also, administrators have no admin time. So they're just going as fast as they can, fix. There's another battle on the horizon about masks or shutdowns or quarantines or whatever. California is now in a huge battle on a number of different fronts. So that's the number one pressure, and fixing it is that focus on hybrid logistics and the structure, which I'm going to get into in a second. More data for you. Where we were in 2019, we were already seeing acceleration of homeschooling at 20% annually. That was already happening. And we were already at 27% of the United States population of an estimated 56 million kids already opted out. Charters, of course, are public, so you have to sort of think with that. This was a huge number. The Forbes numbers that just came out are showing less, but I don't think that they reviewed every single state like we did. All right, so the next thing that happened is, of course, 2020, the pandemic. And wow. So the average district saw 3.6% defection to any alternative during the early parts of the pandemic. The estimate in 2020 was 33.6% have opted out. That's conservative. That median is now 18.86 million students. And it's continuing to accelerate right now, especially where there are mandates. So the losses in 2021, the biggest loss is to homeschooling. So if you talk to any of the big consumer public sites, those guys have like 1,000% growth year over year. You can't even talk to them. They're hiring people so fast. So that is still growing at 20% annually, possibly accelerating again now. Checking my chat window. Oh, thanks, Nick. Nick, why don't we unmute you to make your comment? Doug, can you unmute Nick? I'm making sure I can find Nick myself. Nick.
I muted myself from before. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, good. Go ahead, make your comment.
So our Secretary of State is suing school districts to get rid of their mask mandates for whatever reason, but he will be running for the Senate in the near future. You can draw your own conclusions with that. So it's definitely interesting with that.
Yeah, and you're in Missouri, right?
Yep. I will tell you, we are almost 95% face-to-face, maybe even more than that, 98.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we're hearing that around the country, particularly in the Midwest and Texas and Florida. it's a pretty rocky road in some of the other states. California is particularly rocky after AB1 and now the mandate. So it's kind of a rough ride, but we're not expecting the numbers to come back unless hybrid logistics really takes off. Because then public education is basically offering essentially 100% personalized pathways, be in, be out, be anywhere you want, but the learning is Uberized. And it's 100% a wraparound. We did see in this year's national survey that the level and number of offered disaggregate services has really gone up. And what I mean by that is offering the homeschoolings their high stakes testing, offering homeschoolers to be part of sports leagues and other things like labs, science labs, and that kind of stuff. It sort of wins back some seats, but they're still not 100% affiliated to the district. Those sorts of disaggregated service offerings are, new in some places, they're not new in others. But that's an accelerating trend. The number two biggest pressure, and thank you, Nick, is staffing. When we were in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago, the superintendent that spoke there for us that day said, she has 84 school bus drivers. She needs 101. So she had to move some of her licensed food service people into driving buses just to keep the school open, because she can't bus just some of the kids and not all of the kids. It's a different level of the equity conversation. So none of the kids are getting warm meals anymore because they're only time for making salami sandwiches or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. These are really big issues. She's also short of teaching staff. That's true almost everywhere right now. There's a huge shortage. It's continuing to grow. A lot of the baby boomers have opted out entirely and retired early. So this is the second highest pressure nationally. We also found that one of the things driving that high pressure, this was a January survey this year, is that teachers were feeling overwhelmed, 74% overwhelmed or burnt out. It's hard to be in a hybrid environment. It's hard to teach with a mask on all day. All these things are hard. Just making sure everyone can see my screen. Okay, good. Also, teachers, 47% have found it, they're unable to easily personalize learning. And what that means is a lot like what Blackboard was just showing you, or ClassLink, the navigation and assignment of personal resources was hard, right? So, and then making sure they were equitable for all kids was hard. And if you're busy as a teacher constructing your own set of PDFs and Word documents and links for all your lessons, you're probably going to focus on core, like just the stuff for all the kids. And secondarily, maybe add resources for kids with any other special need or any remediation needed. So you're going to focus here in the everybody's the same, they're all going to do the same thing first. So that's what was happening all of late 2020, 21 so far. So that personalization is hard because you're so busy just getting everything else right. And then we had this situation, which is the workflow issue we bring up all the time. 60% of, or 40% of teachers are sidetracked into repetitive distribution and collection. 60% say they're kind of managing that pretty well, but 40%, this is kind of mirroring the numbers of students lost in the digital navigation of it all. Because of this digital traffic that most administrators don't recognize. They don't see that when you were live in building and you could just go to the whiteboard and write the kid's assignment and turn in this essay tomorrow, or speak it verbally very easily. Here's what we're doing right now, and this is what you need to be doing. When you're doing all of that communication pattern digitally, it's more work. It feels like it's nice because it's digital, and digital is great, right? But if you're doing it in sort of a manual digital way, like distribute this to all, then everybody pelts you with email or everybody pelts you with questions, that's a lot more traffic. If you're physically in the classroom, somebody raises their hands, asks a question, all the other kids heard it at the same time as an answer. Now that's not happening unless you're always on Zoom Meet or Teams or WebEx. And having that go on was too much for kids. So even in California, they've now said that you can't do digital instruction. This is a new law in California all the time on a web meeting. What they meant when they said that was you can't do all your instruction on a live video all the time. So instruction is supposed to be not lecture style, not live all the time. You're supposed to distribute digitally, and then the only time you're coming together is for those special small group or whole group moments. This is a big thing, and this is probably going to sweep the nation because there's so many complaints about why are we trying to do brick and mortar online. This is hard, and the digital traffic goes way up. So waiting for anybody to ask me any questions about that, because I said that sort of convolutedly, but ask me questions. So this is what else we ask teachers, and essentially we said, how many hours approximately are you spending in the back and forth digital traffic of assignments, logins, which content, on student and parent email traffic, checking all your systems, checking your apps, notifications, messages, anything that's more distribution and administrative function than directly instructing students live to help them understand something. 10 hours a week, 30% of the respondents, 5 to 10 hours a week, 18%, 2 to 5 hours a week, 32%. This is huge. So that traffic, if you do the math on it for how much those hours are costing you for your people, you really start to understand why hybrid logistics and the structure of your execution became so critically important to Learning Council research over the past year. We really wanted to try to start looking at the future and how it needs to be far more seamless despite the unbelievable complexity of the software model architecture in K-12. So number 3 biggest pressure is lost achievement. 51% of students lost achievement nationwide. A lot of schools are completely absorbed into this issue, trying to fix it. Some of them fixing it with a lot of high value professional grade remedial software, setting up summer camps, setting up an hour to 2 hours a day of remedial time where teachers can do more direct instruction one-on-one, but that's a huge pressure as well. The 4th biggest pressure is the dramatic tech adoption. It is hard on any district to suddenly roll out massive numbers of devices, increase their network capacity, buy a bunch of licenses, put in their single sign-on, get everybody using the learning management system. It's been a 24-hour job for a lot of administrators for the last 2 years. So that increase in 2020 was a $7.5 billion increase, obviously accelerating in 2021. This was our prediction in 2021 for hardware alone and major software systems. So those are your big iron repositories, learning management systems, student information systems. Those didn't increase anywhere near our anticipated value because a lot of districts, when they first waded in, were relying on things like Google Docs to do everything for them until they realized this is not enterprise grade. This is not a thing that's going to do the tagging requirements and the community requirements that a true LMS would really do. So a lot of superintendents ended up telling us, yeah, we're going to put in an LMS now. So we're ready to roll. But hardware will retain its increase of 4.4 billion up over 2019 and continue to increase. We're also anticipating some increase in major software systems, but there is still a huge portion of the market, schools and districts that they're not quite there yet. They're still figuring things out. And then you add on top of that the back and forth yo-yo effect of are we in, are we out, are we quarantined, what's happening? Digital versus paper. So the digital curriculum spend by schools and districts went up by 2.1 billion. In 2021, it should jump another 2 billion, if not far more. When we first wrote this data, we wanted to be conservative, and then 2 more stimulus acts passed. So this could be off the charts. The paper resources spend is still significantly down. That is because almost every single district, with rare exception, has said normal is never coming back. We're digital now for good, and paper is kind of out the window. The consumer comparison, and this is something I always show when we're on the road, You'll be familiar with it. The comparison between what the K-12 market spends on professional grade digital curriculum and versus what's happening in the consumer markets. So the consumer market was actually starting to slow down in growth before the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and a lot of school districts shut down for 2, 3, 4 weeks, 2 months completely, or right there in March, ended the year. What happened after that was a lot of parents and grandparents scrambled and went online to find curriculum for their kids. And that introduced the mass portion of the American market to valuable consumer grade apps, websites, full subscription sites that offer full K through 12 curriculum in the state that they're in, aligned with standards and everything. So that just took off. And so what you can consider now is that the entire national market has been exposed to things of such quality, it's like Minecraft gaming level, that they're also adding that concern of professional grade navigation, good logistics, and good workflow. Oh, you completed this math module? You're gated immediately up to the next level, tested, passed, you've gone to this level. And it's all gamified, it's got graphics, unbelievable quality UI, UX, user interface, user experience. That what's happening now as kids come back to school is they're like, why is this so clunky? Why are there 87 instructions for this one lesson? I have to go here, click there, I have to go over here, click there, and I got to go over this app to write my essay. Now I got to go over here to write this thing. How come there's not a WYSIWYG editor right in the app where I can write my essay right in there? Why do I have to go somewhere else and then come back? This is ridiculous. So those concerns about what is real quality user interface, user experience are coming now into this market. So I already talked earlier today about the number 5 pressure, which is digital models. The digital complexity of all of your systems in K-12 is so far greater than any other market in the United States. It's ridiculous to even talk about it. You have thousands of apps. You have rogue apps in your schools and districts that you don't even know. Some, second grade teachers putting all the students in, and they have to enter their personal address in their huge security issue, privacy issue. There's a lot going on. So that conversation you see on the slide about logistics, auto cohorting, auto distribution of resources, auto calendaring, live interaction to Uberize learning is a very heated one right now because you have a very complex environment. I don't know if you should be like proud of that, like, oh, we're masters of the most complex environment in the world, or you should be horrified. I'm not really sure how you should react. All right, moving along to this next part is that we want you to visualize what you're in the middle of, right? So the real digital transition is actually changing your basic organizing principles. You come from a 250-year-old legacy of whole group buildings. Kids are put into their grades by age, then the classes, maybe courses, and there's a pyramid bureaucracy. And at the bottom is the student, the teachers in their walled off little cubicle-like classrooms. When we went into the middle part here, the mutation, you are now suddenly looking at the network distribution of that former structure now in digital, and you're running 2 organizations and you maybe don't realize it. You're running an organization that is almost Amazon-like digitally, and you're running a retail level organization at the same time. That is why the stress is so phenomenal, because you're not built for this age. You're built for the old age, and you're tacking on a structure that is better if it just stood alone by itself, together in one mutation pattern. Where we believe it's going, from all the research that we've been looking at for years, is a fully personalized learning distributed service, which flips the organization on its head and uses extraliminal network organization. So what that means is teachers from anywhere. You can have a teacher from 3 districts over, students from almost anywhere. You're now a node on the network. You still have live buildings, you still have live intersection, but you've perfected how you use humans in that service structure for their greatest quality, which is being human. And that being humanness has to be isolated and elevated by a master plan of tech that actually really truly causes that social, emotional, human intersection that people want, not like wasted time in classroom. And we all know this is happening in classes forever. Teacher gives you assignment, now do your reading, and they sit there and they do something else. Or they lecture the whole time, right? This is not necessarily the perfection of the teacher's real qualities of teaching. So that is the mutation where we're going as whole group, mutating to that dynamic cohorting based on pace, not necessarily competency, just pace. So I mentioned before, we know that this is happening because Israel also started talking about it heavily, and other nations. So let's go over the pieces in your latest special report, Learning Leadership versus Systemic Inequities. Just say it out loud that systemic inequity is the structure itself. It is built to create identical outcomes and individualize only within very narrow parameters, right? Like when you say, I'm personalizing learning as a teacher, what you're really doing is that student has to maintain, in general, the same pace as every other kid in that grade level. They can't be 3 grades behind, or they're sort of flunked out, right? Every teacher triages for the kids that they have in front of them. And if they notice that 3 out of 30 are totally not going to make it, they will put their attention on the rest of them to make sure they make it, because they look good when the majority of the class passes. So it's a sort of capitalistic focus on how am I going to get my numbers up as a teacher, but I'm going to triage out those ones who are just not going to make it. That doesn't work, and hasn't worked for some kids forever. So that model of top-down grade batches by age, I'm showing you that on the screen right now. Notice the teacher in the middle is a mayhem of work to try to figure that all out. The logistics that you've been having in terms of calendaring just went to alt schedules all over the place. All over the nation when the pandemic hit, the alteration of schedules went haywire, where you've got weekly rotations, daily rotations, you changed your time blocks, all kinds of things happen. Rostering got super complex, but the motion was very linear, same as it always has been, student moving from class to class to class. So the space and motion, even for your hybrid kids outside that are coming in via remote Zoom meetings, still the same. But your tech stack went up significantly. So that was that first one. Blend and flip traditional, that's just plan your lessons so that the night homework happens. Competency-based contemporary, we all know about this one. It was built for smaller schools. Fully online traditional, those companies right now, they don't really provide as much human interaction. That's their downfall. That's what you have as public education, they don't have. It's the leveraging of it that's in question right now. How well are you seriously leveraging the human connection? That is the issue. Fully online contemporary, these are the big companies. Their basic organization structure is direct-to-consumer model, and they are just killing it right now, except for that human interface. Hybrid simultaneous, teaching via Zoom, teaching live online at the same time, also called a concurrent model, very common right now. Logistics change, student motion stays almost the same. The new model I spoke about earlier today is hybrid logistics. It's a rearrangement of your physical environment and a rearrangement of your teachers into a service array in an Uberized method against cohort pace. This is a different model. It still allows you to structure by age and grade if you want to, but your space rework would look something like this. Teachers or kids are all in giant homerooms, maybe 4 or 5 on one campus based on grade or multi-grade. They have oversight. But as they're Uberized, they're moving out into the classes. Maybe they're shorter, 20, 30 minutes, not an hour long. And then they're back to study. And they may be at different steps. The logistics and analytics allow you to toggle kids higher in the amount they spend on math, lower in history, whatever they need more time in order to remain somewhat constant with your normal pacing guide. But most schools we think are going to do the hybrid high flex, which means maintain your existing model, but carve out 2 hours a day or maybe a full day that are completely hybrid logistics for remedial and extracurricular activity. Maybe even have houses for them, like the way that you campus out where kids are at any one time. Libraries, gyms work for this. But that model is where we see most school districts moving to first in order to adopt hybrid logistics. So the future will be like little pop-ups on your phone or on your device. Your class is going to start in 3 minutes. Here's the web meeting link if you're physically not on site. So that's what a hybrid logistics interchange is. And the questions for you to sort of think about right now, and I'm hoping that you pipe up and speak. These are the 4 questions that we got into when we were on the road physically this last couple of weeks in Dallas, Atlanta, Indianapolis, and Orlando. And everywhere we went, people went immediately to say, we should deal with number 4 first. And I hope you think the same way. If you think about hybrid logistics and where the future of trying to develop real full equity while competing with online models and trying to sweep back in all your area homeschoolers, is you have to imagine what it would be like to have a fully personalized journey without losing the human intersection that everyone seems to still want. We learned this the hard way in the pandemic. We want it. We want it to its perfection. We want it to be used exactly when we want it and need it. Just like when we call an Uber, we don't need it there an hour early or an hour later or the next day. We need it when we need it. And that is a logistics issue of how you execute on teaching and learning. So I want to ask everyone to join in here. Any questions you have maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Type in your comment. Ask these questions of yourselves. Consider all the data that I've just presented and consider your survival as a school and district. What does this mean for you? Are you going to bring this up with your superintendent and your board? Because this is real. And I know if you're watching the news, you're seeing it the same way I am. Time and space, totally different. Are you traditional? Are you trying to be competitive? What are the barriers to your transition, which are normally humans, standing in the way, wanting things to go back to normal, which will never return. So hoping you guys are thinking about all this stuff. And if you're typing in questions, I want to know. But I'm getting ready to move on here for our next speaker.
Now, more than ever, educators need tools to meet each student where they are. And students need personalized reading instruction to become confident readers and learn core skills that will put them on a trajectory of success. Together, we can build those skills, layering them one step at a time, working towards literacy at each student's own pace to close gaps across the curriculum. Starting with phonemic awareness and phonics, as students master foundational reading with Scholastic First. Developing vocabulary and background knowledge with Scholastic Word to deepen comprehension and make sense of what they read. And building fluency and stamina with Scholastic Literacy Pro's robust ebook library driven by each student's choices, interests, and levels. Because it's not just about learning to read. It's about reading to learn and loving to read. With digital solutions from Scholastic, you can empower students to grow as readers and become intelligent thinkers of tomorrow. You can monitor and adapt in real time to differentiate and target learning. And you can trust that together we can meet the goals of students, teachers, families, and communities with digital solutions that work.